So today I will be doing a video on Clickbait, a mini-series about a man who is a husband and father and is kidnapped and videotaped. If 5 million people watch his video, he will die. His family and the police try to race against time to try and save him. This show was nothing what I thought it would be, which is great. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's not a perfect show, but gets the job done. The show starts off rocky, then strong, and then rocky again, and then has a fantastic finale. Each episode shows the perspective from a different character. So the first episode is called The Sister, and it starts off with the sister of the husband, who is later kidnapped. At first, I didn't like her. Her acting was way too over the top, especially when she was drunk or fighting with her brother. Her and her brother don't get along, and his last words to her end up being harsh, and that's the last they speak. I wasn't too impressed with the first few minutes of the show. It looked surprisingly cheap, like a big budget Lifetime movie. I thought the sister would be obnoxious throughout. The suspense in episode 1 was out of this world. I was immediately pulled in. One thing that did bug me were the kids. They looked way too old to belong to their parents. Both the husband and the wife look like they're in their late 30s. Technically, they could have kids this old, but it didn't look right. These people don't seem like the type to have kids at a young age. Episode 2 shows the detective working on the case. I didn't care about his private life. Everything else was good when he was actively working on the investigation, but I thought bringing up the fact that he was Muslim was unnecessary. I didn't care about his family life. Thankfully, it was brief, and we get back to the main story. The story progresses very quickly. I was afraid the show would try to stretch out the 5 million views for most of the episodes, and that would have been unrealistic. Episode 5 is called The Reporter. I hated the gay reporter. He was such a criminal that I started rooting for the kidnapper. And that's a bad thing, and they dedicated a whole episode to him. Yes, it was entertaining, but his actions just bugged the crap out of me, and he never faces consequences. This guy is such a freaking psychopath, and he gets a rush out of it. It's not even just about reporting. He gets off on committing crimes in order to get his story. Definitely the weakest episode because I hated him. How did he not get his ass kicked? Overall, the show never has a dull moment. There are some minor bumps along the way, but 90% of it is so good, and I give it an 8 out of 10. And this is where I'm going to get into spoilers, so if you haven't seen the show, I would turn it off right now. I really hated the feminist cheating husband angle. It was a disappointing twist and went from thriller to melodrama. They built this whole thing up just to make it another men suck scenario. I became slightly less and less interested in the story, but it was still for the most part entertaining. I also thought the woman that committed suicide looked closer to 39 instead of 29, and I had a hard time sympathizing with her because I think it's abusive to threaten suicide just because someone doesn't want to talk to you anymore. Once it went this route, I ended up turning it off to do something else. I wasn't into it anymore. What was written on the cards in the video with the husband was so out of this world. Like, wow, he murdered a woman? He abused women? Where is this gonna lead to? I was anticipating that. And then it all just led to this? Really? That was a gut punch. I turned it on hours later just to see how it was gonna end. And then there's another twist. Nick wasn't cheating after all. It was a catfish. And that made me love the show all over again. I was so on board at this point. It did show at the end that he did have a dating profile, so he wasn't 100% innocent, but his wife cheated on him, so it evens out. The thing I liked most was exploring women catfishing as men, using a man's picture to get attention from women even though you're straight. That was fascinating. That's something that isn't talked about or is anything I've seen on TV before, and her motive was so sad and understandable, and I wish we got to spend more time with her The conversation she has with her husband in the mobile home was odd because I would think they would have already had this discussion, but her explaining why she did it was just for the audience. They could have orchestrated that better, maybe show her saying all of that in a flashback instead. But yeah, I give this an 8 out of 10. It's a really good show, and I recommend it.